And our next speaker as well is just as exciting. He is a best-selling author of Book Our Next Reality, which has some crazy little segments in there, and I'm sure he's going to tell you all about them. But yeah, he is the one to talk about, or talk to, when it comes to the future and what that might look like. It's very interesting for us Gen Zs. I want to welcome up Alvin Wang Graylin. Hello.
Thank you.
I should be shaking people's hands. I haven't been doing that. But yeah, how do you feel to be at Futureport Youth today and sharing your new book? Is it new? Brand new?
Yeah, just came out this year in June, so very recent. And we actually have copies downstairs for anybody that's interested. I'm just excited to be here and to follow Jan. That's a tough act to follow. So he just talked about space. I'm going to talk to you about reality. So another big word, and I think there's a lot of depth that we can get into.
Perfect. Well, I'll leave you to it.
Thank you. I'm going to need that.
Oh, yeah, you are going to need it.
Thank you. So good afternoon.
Is that okay?
First, I want to congratulate you, all of you, because you guys are one of the most lucky generations, actually the most lucky generation of people that has ever existed. Because it took 10,000 generations of humans to come to today. And these next few years, as was mentioned earlier in the morning, are going to be the most important parts, or most important developments, and most important time in the history of our species, and probably of our planet. So what happens then is going to determine what happens for the next thousands of years, or maybe millions of years if we listen to Jan. So I think we are actually at this new dawn of a new reality. And let me talk to you a little bit about what that means. When we're at the dawn, we're actually at the beginning of something brand new. We've had multiple industrial revolutions and technical revolutions, but all of those things have just incrementally moved us, right? We've been more efficient, we've gotten healthier, we live a little longer, better food, but it does not fundamentally change our society and how we treat each other. But what's going to happen in the next few years will actually take the basis of what our society is, has the foundation of our society, and change that fundamentally. So, and the stuff I talk about is from this book, but it's not, there's actually a lot of new stuff I put in here just for you, because I think there are some topics that are very important to cover for people of your generation. I was very lucky to have Neal Stephenson. If any of you guys know Neal Stephenson, he's a sci-fi author. Whoever asked about the sci-fi, I'm sure you guys know. One of my favorites all time, and he wrote my foreword. And I'm really glad that there are people like him who can show us the long-term path of where things are going. In fact, I would urge you, if you don't read sci-fi, to read more sci-fi. We do a lot of reading of history that talks about the past, but really sci-fi is a study of the future, and you will have an opportunity to decide what that future looks like. So when we talk about reality, it's important to realize that reality is not determined. It is something that is actually in our hands of which way it goes, and it could be very good or it could be very bad. Technology, all technology, are two-edged swords, right? And what that means is it could be used for something that can truly benefit us, but if used incorrectly, it could hurt society in massive ways. And the more powerful that technology, the more damaging that misuse could be. So when I wrote this book, it was really because I feel that the next 5 years to 10 years is so critical, and the world does not understand what's coming. So I wrote it together with my co-author, Louis Rosenberg, and we essentially debate the key questions that are coming, and we debate it from both the positive and the negative side, because this is something I want to urge you to think more about. Most people, when they find books or look for articles, they find things that confirm what they already believe. It's important for you to actually challenge what you believe by looking at both sides. If somebody only tells you all the good things about a technology or a new development or a new company, be careful, because they are hiding something. Only when they tell you both the positives and negatives, then can you really have the full picture of what you're looking at. So there's a quote from Mark Twain that I think is important to highlight right now. He said, "It's not what you don't know that really gets you in trouble. It's what you think you know for sure that just ain't so that gets you in the most trouble." And I think that's the problem today, is that too many of us see a very biased opinion of what the reality is on press and news, in various media that you look at, and we think that that is the truth. But in most cases, that's only one portion of the truth. So I'm going to tell you a few things that you may think are controversial, but I think will change your mind about some of these ideas. So you've been lied to about a lot of things. People will say AI is just a tool. It is not just a tool, and I will show you why. People will say, AI takeover, and robots going to come get us. No, that is not the biggest risk we have to worry about. People are saying, we need to have this AI arms race because democracy has to win. No, that's actually, nobody can win an arms race in this type of area. And people will tell you that AI will take your job and we're going to all be in trouble. No, when AI actually takes your job, you're going to be happier because you're going to be liberated to do the things that you care about. There will be people who say, every country has to have their own AI because every country's AI has to represent your culture. But no, when you do that, you create 200 versions of AIs that see each other as enemies. That's not the world we want to live in. There will be people who will tell you that, look at those XR, VR, AR devices. Nobody ever used them. I will show you why that is not true. And there will be people who tell you, in fact, right now, Bitcoin is reaching all-time highs. They will say, that is the future of money. I will tell you why this is not so and why it is one of the most unequal, unfair types of currency we have in the world today. People will tell you that UBI is not possible and welfare is actually bad for society. I will tell you that without UBI installed globally, we are going to head into a very troubling world. And some people will tell you that, AI progress is going to hit a wall. We will not get to AGI. We will not get to ASI, artificial general and artificial superintelligence. I will tell you that no, those things are coming, and it is coming faster than you expect. I will start first by talking about media, because all of you are so influenced today by the media that you see. We've gone through, over the last couple hundred years, going from text media to one-dimensional radio, to two-dimensional TV, to 2.5-dimensional video games on computers. But what we're coming to now are devices that will be on your face, on your head, that gives you a fully immersive 3D experience and allows you to use natural interface, your body, your mouth, your eyes as the interface, or your brain signals as your interface. So we are going into a place where things are becoming more natural, and things are going to be more like the real world. Because in the real world, it is a 3D world, and we interface in a 3D way with a natural interface. That's how media is going to be. When we look back, when we have screens all around us, right? In this room, at your office, in your school, at your home. But just 100 years ago, there was no screens in our lives, 120 years ago. And then we got the first screens, which were the silver screen, the biggest screen. And every few decades, we added additional screens. If you look at this trend, you'll think we're going to have dozens of more screens in our lives. But I will tell you, no, we're actually going the other way. Within the next few decades, all the screens that you have on your wall, on your desk, and in your pocket are going to be something that goes onto your face. And eventually, maybe that, according to some, a chip in your head. Right? So we are going to get to a point where we go back to where we started, where no screens again. And today's screens are actually not that bad. I mean, they're a little bit chunky, but they are becoming a lot smaller than what they used to be. When I started with this technology, these things were 2.5 kilograms with big wires and cables. Now they're down to a couple hundred grams for the devices that we make, right? And probably all 500-600 grams for the ones that Apple makes. But where we're going, well, if any guys watch Three Body Problem, so this is the kind of what they imagine as the future of XR devices. And it has smell, it has taste, it has everything, it connects to your brain. We don't need to get there for it to bring value to the world. We actually, I think, may actually go the other way. Thin and light devices, things of what I'm wearing right now. These devices are all devices that are on the market today that are under 50 grams, under $500. And the one I have right now has AI in it. It has audio, video, cameras. This one has display on it as well. And all of these things are under 50, 60 grams and last hours. Oops. So what I want you to realize is that displays on your face is not something far away, and it is not something out of reach for cost. It is something that will become the most natural way and the most popular way for us to interact with computers and with each other long term. For those who study philosophy, you might have heard a gentleman named Marshall McLuhan. He's a media philosopher, and he said the words, "The medium is the message." But a lot of people don't necessarily realize what that actually means. And I will kind of give you my interpretation of what that means. We started for the last few hundred years with a medium that is a one-to-many medium. It's a broadcast medium. Somebody prints a book, somebody makes a radio show, somebody makes a TV show, right? And then the message that it is saying is that this one person sets the truth, the reality, and you will conform and you will be controlled by it. We, over the last 20 years, have moved to a new medium, the many-to-many medium, and that's social media. Social media is the message is compare. Compare yourself against each other and be compelled by this message that's being told to you. And we all know what people say about comparing, right? Comparison is what? The thief of joy. This is why young people today are some of the loneliest people, loneliest generation, and why everybody feels like they're inadequate, because they're always comparing. We need to move away from a medium where we're compelled to compare. Where we will go next is a medium that is actually many to one. And it's not necessarily many people. It actually will be many AIs making the media, the content that is created for you on an individual basis. Everybody will be getting actually content suitable to you, to your interests, and to make you a more complete person, particularly if it is not advertising driven. If it's for your good, it will actually complete you. It will help you to comprehend reality. And that's actually the future of media I want to get to. Now, let's get to a topic that everybody's been talking about, artificial intelligence. And in movies, AI is always bad. It's the evil overlord that somehow overturns the world, the robots that come over and get you. That's really not where things are going, and I will tell you why. Even though that's how movies make it seem so, why? Because it doesn't sound very good. It's not a very exciting story when AI comes and does good things and helps you and makes you a happier person. That's not a very challenging story. They need to have a reason for people, for the protagonist to be challenged, to go through various troubles and then overcome their troubles. This is the storyline of Hollywood. So today we hear a lot about Gen AI, generative AI. Generative AI is not the end of AI. It is not also the beginning of AI. I started studying AI in 1991, doing natural language processing systems with neural networks. And in about 1998, I went to MIT and studied symbolic AI to do algorithmic trading on Wall Street. Where we are going next is actually where the value of AI starts to bring different level of impact, is when we get to agentic AI, where AI actually can do things, not just create content responding to what you ask for, which is where generative AI is today. You will be able to give an objective to an AI. It will be able to go do things for you, complete the task, and then tell you what happened, just like a partner in a project or an employee at your company. And where it will be going long-term is AGI, artificial general intelligence, where it really has the capability to learn for itself, complete tasks, grow, improve, and continue to recursively become a better, more intelligent, more complete being. At that point, our ability to compete with it from a cognitive perspective will really disappear. It will overtake us very quickly. So, on the side of reality, I want you to look at this video and tell me which one of these objects are real and which one of these objects are computer generated. You can say it out loud, or you could say it to yourself. What you'll find is that everything on that screen is generated in real time, rendered in real time, except for the environment around it. And this is the type of technology that will become part of every pair of these smart glasses or smart goggles that we will be getting. We will be able to augment our world and create whatever environment we want, whether to help us learn better, whether to help us be entertained, or whether to help us communicate better. And that is actually not that far away. So I want to do a little exercise for you that gives you a little better concept of some of the basic ideas underlying AI. So look at this picture and think, what does it look like? It looks kind of confusing, right? But I want you to now squint your eyes, barely open, and look again and tell me what you see. Okay, so the picture changed. Why? This technology essentially is how the diffusion model works. It gives you a blurry picture of something, and then your brain fills in with its memory of what it thinks the closest matches to that blurry picture. Okay? So our brain actually in some ways works like a diffusion model. Now I'm going to have another exercise for you. I want you to read the text on there and read to yourself or read out loud. What do you think it says? What you'll find is that you start out reading very slowly, but the more you go down, the faster it gets. You didn't just learn a new language in 5-10 seconds. What you did was to start predicting the next word. This is what transformer models, this is what the basis of ChatGPT and Claude and all these large language models are based on. So our brain actually does work in some ways like these AI models. Right? I'm going to do one more example for you. What color is that can? It looks red, right? But now I want you to close your eyes and then look again and tell me what color it is. It's actually, there's no red in that picture. Your brain saw the Coca-Cola logo and put in the red because it thinks that it should be red. What is that? That's a hallucination. So we keep blaming AI for having hallucinations. Our brain hallucinates all the time. We fill in what we think it should look like. Okay? So it's actually normal for brains, human brains, AI brains, to do these things. And these brains, whether whoever is making them, they're improving dramatically. We now have systems that just came out a month ago from OpenAI that exceed PhD level, expert level capabilities in scientific research and computing and coding, etc. We are getting to a point where these technologies, even with the limited compute that we have, even before we get to all of the next wave of Moore's Law and beyond, we are getting to places where these technologies can already exceed us in many areas. But you'll hear people say, oh, but we're going to run out of data. So here's a little chart of how much data are we actually using for these. Right now, most of the high-end models are using between 1 and 10 terabytes of data. How much data do we have in the public internet? About 100 times that kind of data. How much data do we have in the private internet? About 10 to the 9 more times that type of data. So we have a lot of data that is not being used, that could be used to really enhance these systems. And now if you go beyond text, you actually have multimodal data, video, audio, animations, 3D models. Then you go into sensor data, all the satellites that we have, all the cars, all the cameras. And then you go into synthetic data. We essentially have unlimited data that has not been used. So there is a lot more potential for this technology to improve beyond where it is today. And people talk about, oh, Moore's Law is hitting a wall. It's not going to get any better. Actually, if you look at what happened over the last 8 years, just NVIDIA chips have become 1,000 times faster than 8 years ago. If you look at just Moore's Law's increases, I used to work at Intel. I actually worked on some of the early architectures that preceded the GPUs by 10 years that did the same thing. The single instruction multi-data is not a concept that NVIDIA created. Actually, Intel did it long before. And Moore's Law was invented by one of the founders of Intel. right? So you can see even today with this technology, we are not only is Moore's law not stopping, it's actually faster than Moore's law has ever gone. And you have people like Jensen Huang, who was mentioned earlier. He's the CEO of NVIDIA. And he say every country needs to have your own AI. We need to have sovereign AI. That's great for his stock price. That's why he has a $3 trillion stock price, because everybody's fighting over this limited supply of chips to do the computing. But the reality is, we actually don't want every country to do it, because if every country and every lab is competing to do the exact same thing, we run out of chips. Right? This is why he's already sold the next year of production for his Blackwell chips. And what I also said earlier is that you start creating this AI arms race, you start creating this competition where everybody's trying to buy as many chips as they can. Everybody's trying to keep their secrets from each other so that they don't help each other. But the reality is that even though they are doing this, they are all getting to the same place. So AI models are the fastest depreciating assets in the world right now. Within 2 to 3 months of a new model coming out, all the open source models are very close to it. So for them to have spent billions of dollars training something and then be copied very quickly, that doesn't make sense, right? And here's the scarier part is that now governments are getting involved and saying, we need to create a Manhattan Project of AI. This is what the Trump administration and their advisors are saying. And what did we do the last time we made a Manhattan Project? We created a bomb, and within 2 months, we used it on private citizens, on civilians. We don't want to make a Manhattan Project. We actually would rather make an Apollo project, something that takes us out to space and to a better place, creates innovation. So I'm going to introduce a concept that a lot of you probably already heard, but may not fully understand, is that this thing called scaling law, right? And what that means is that the loss of an algorithm, the accuracy, essentially the intelligence, will go at the inverse of the inputs that you put into it. Whether it's the bigger the model, the more parameters, the more compute, the more you put at these three areas, the better the models get, the more intelligence they get, the less lossy, the less error they have. Okay? And we've seen that across dozens of orders of magnitude of all of these areas. And within the last, and so essentially across, no matter who's doing it, no matter which lab's doing it, they see the same trends. And now we have a new area, which is runtime compute, right? So the longer you run it before you get an answer, you also get scaling. So now you actually have 4 areas where you could scale and have continued improvements. These are things that are very promising for us to get to AGI. Now, for us to get to AGI, I actually think we also need to be able to get to programs that program itself. About 4 or 5 years ago, people were saying that's 2040, 2050, we'll get to that. And within the last 2 years, it is now 2026 is what the average AI researcher says we will get to that point. And when do they think we will get to AGI? When does 2,000 something AI researchers? 4 or 5 years ago, it was around 2080, 2090 was the consensus. Now it's 2030. So this is within 5, 6 years of today, people think we're going to get to AGI. And when we do get to AGI, we're going to be able to do things that are thought as science fiction today. We're going to be able to have significant improvements in our understanding of the universe. We are going to have exponential increase in our productivity. We are going to have solutions to solve our energy problem, our climate problem, the health issues, all the things that have been plaguing our species for a long, long time. And we will be able to reach that world of abundance that we talk about in Star Trek, right? So in Star Trek, we needed the Vulcans to come from outer space to bring this technology. We are now actually creating our own Vulcans. That is something that I want you to realize. We have an opportunity to have our own control of our future. And when we do have abundance, we will be able to change the fundamental nature of why we have conflict today, which is a lack of resources. Right? So there's kind of currently 3 paths forward. There are the people who are the doomers, the decelerationist. They're saying the future is bad. We just got to stop. We need to stop all the training. And then there will be the people who are the accelerationists that says, just keep going. The future is always better than the past. And then you have the folks who are the new group called the decentralized acceleration. They're saying there's a good path and a bad path. Pick the right path and it'll be fine. The reality is that all three of these have issues. We know that the future has been better than the past as technology improves. So we cannot say the future is worse. We know that getting to a good future, there's always bumpiness in the road. So it is not a perfect, easy path. And we also know that there really is no bear. There's nobody chasing us to say you have to go as fast as possible. Because you know what? Even if you're a year, 2 years, 5 years later, in the long, bigger picture, it does not matter. Do we need to go that fast? And to get to that perfect place, the castle in the sky, we also will go through bad times. And it is not a single person running. It is actually 8 billion people running, all tied together, because if we fail as a group, we all fail together. So the picture that it looks more like where we are today is actually like this. It's a group of people tied with a rope, crossing a narrow bridge that is moving. We should be moving cautiously, and we should be moving together, not competing with each other to try to get there first. If you try to do the model of accelerationists and competition on that bridge, everybody dies. Right? We need to pool our resources, which are limited. We need to think about society-level cooperation and sharing of the results of that. And we need to think about safety beyond speed. And at the end of the day, whatever we come up with, whatever results should be shared with the world, not to the one group or the country or the company who invented it. Because whatever that is, it should be a public good. And I call that collaborative acceleration, because it's really about moving together into a safe and better place. Now, when we talk about AI risk, because it's not all good, there's risks as well. People think, oh, the smarter it is, the more dangerous it is. This is the kind of graph that you see. The reality is actually we are right now on the beginning of a path, and that may be the truth. But there's a concept called the Kuznets curve. Simon Kuznets in 1960 came up with an idea that in certain things like pollution and equality and et cetera, energy use, sometimes you go up a curve, and then when you get to a certain level of maturity, it actually comes back down the curve. And I think that's what this AI risk is. The early part, when you have an immature AI that is being guided by potentially bad humans, we will have danger. But when we actually have AI that becomes intelligent enough to know what it's doing, to be able to comprehend its impact on the world beyond that little scope, it starts to be able to be aligned, and then later it self-aligns. And it becomes safer as we get it to a more mature stage. So the AI takeover, is that the real risk? No. The alignment problem, is that the real risk? Are they going to turn us all into paper clips? No. The real risks that we have are twofold. One is that we will have massive job displacement, whether we want it or not, whether we believe it or not, it will happen. Right? We will have social stability if that is not handled well. When you have 30, 40, 50, 60% of the population lose their employment, the government, the social safety nets need to be put in place. And we will have mental health issues when people lose their sense of identity. The other thing that is also real, and we know historically is consistently real, is that technology will be misused, and misinformation will happen. I'm not going to talk about these things in detail because later on Matthias is going to do that. And manipulation with this technology will be one of the heaviest risks that we have. And lastly, militarization. That's the part that I'm most scared of, because when governments start to weaponize this technology, when something this powerful happens, we will be the collateral damage. Humans will be the collateral damage that happens with the fight between giants. I'm not sure if you know this gentleman, Edward Bullard Lytton. He said something that is quite powerful, and he said it at a time when he was saying, instead of fighting wars, let's talk to each other. Let's use language to be able to create peace and overcome our conflicts. We are now at a new point where it's not the pen that is mightier than the sword. It is actually the prompt that is mightier than the sword. And I hope that you guys will use this prompt that you guys have to then go and spread a message of positivity and collaboration. I'm going to skip a couple of these because I'm running low on time, but Maddie will talk about some of these issues later about manipulation. We also have AI today that are able to create new genes, create new poisons, create new chemicals that could, or create systems that will hack into any power system or cyber network, right? So there's a lot of danger of misuse that will happen. And let's quickly talk about job displacement. This is a year-old chart from OpenAI, and it's already showing that significant parts of the population will be impacted. Now, just a couple months ago, it's now showing that just from GPT 4.0, which came out in May, to GPT 0.1, which came out in the end of September, there's already significant increases in these capabilities. And people starting to realize that, no, it is not the blue collars that will be replaced first. It is actually the white collars. It is the people who are studying math and accounting and law and so forth. Those are the people that are the most at risk. But you know what? The labor class, the blue-collar workers will be just as at risk in the very soon, because you have robots like this that are now being produced around the world. You can see flags from around the world, and they are coming in at very, very low cost. They're already being used in factories and warehouses. Very soon, they will actually be being sent into the home. You have this promo demo of a robot that goes into a home and becomes your maid. I'm going to skip it. And it was mentioned that we already have robots that are $16,000 that can be bought into the homes today. As technology and productivity increases, our working hours has continued to decrease over time over the last 200 years. If you look at, in today's world, if you look at the productivity per capita, it also reduces when productivity increases in each country. With that trend, we will see that our hours will continue to reduce. It is a good thing. It is not a bad thing. Right? Technology already can replace a number of tasks. Very soon, it will start to replace more and more skilled tasks, and longer term, it will replace all tasks. And the wages of people will continue to drop. The first ones to drop are the non-expert class of workers. But longer term, even the experts will be replaced in some ways, and the wage concept will go away. I don't know if it's 5 years or 10 years or 2 years. Depends on who you ask. People in the industry is not all in agreement, but they all agree it will happen. I'm going to skip a couple of slides. So this is an important slide, because if you ask a lot of people today, what do they want to do? Everybody wants to be a billionaire. Everybody wants to be the next big entrepreneur on the cover of Forbes. But I will tell you something. Very soon, when you get to that new world where money becomes less and less important, there's actually something else that will be more important, and that is your time. Your time is something that everybody has almost an equal amount, and you are all billionaires in time, because everybody has about 2 billion seconds in your current life, in our current lifespan. And you are the richest group of people right now in this room, the young people, because you have a lot more time than the people that are on the stage. And you are much more rich from that perspective. It's what you do with that time that really matters. And if you look at equality within the countries, there's something called the Gini Index. If you haven't seen this concept, look it up. It's important because it talks about how equal is a society. And the darker it is, the less equal it is, right? The worst countries in the world right now is around 60, 65, okay? 100 or 1 is bad, and 0 is good. The global Gini Index right now is 68. Which means on a global basis, we are more unequal than even the worst single country's unequalness. If you look at, historically, in the 1800s, when you had kings and fiefdoms, we were at around 50 in the Gini Index. Back in the old days, or actually during the Industrial Revolution, we were at 50. And back in the kings and fiefdom days, we were around the 20s. Okay, so we've actually increasingly become less equal, not more equal over time. But there is some good news for you, particularly the ones in this room, because I did a quick research and said, what are the most equal places in the world right now? And actually, the Czech Republic right now ranks #1 out of these many countries as the most equal place. So congratulations to you. And you actually also have the most lifespan equality, which means that the people that live the longest and live the shortest actually have the closest to that zero number. We want to get to as close to zero as possible. The rest of the world is actually worse than that. And if you look at when people talk about money, that money number, you can see, whether you're talking about income or wealth, with wealth, the inequality is even higher, okay? Now you have a lot of people talking about, oh, but the future is decentralized cryptocurrency. Now let's look at the equality of Bitcoin, right? Which is what most people talk about. If you look at the ownership today, the Gini index is 83, which is about as bad as the worst countries in the world in terms of Gini inequality. If you look at it in terms of the global Gini index, in terms of all the people that hold it and all the people that don't hold it. So there's about 400 million Bitcoin wallets in the world, but only 46 that has really more than $1 in it, and only 46 million that have more than $1 in it, and 4 million that have more than 0.1 Bitcoins in it. So there's very few people in the world that actually has these coins. It is a very unfair state. And here's the worst part. 95% of the coins that will ever be made has already been distributed. So for the rest of humanity, the rest of the people, the rest of the 8 billion people that are alive today, and the rest of the billions and billions, the hundreds of billions of people that will ever be alive, will divide up that last 5%. Do you think that's a fair world? I don't think so. So be careful when people talk to you about how Bitcoin is the future and is the most decentralized, fairest place. The future of currency has to be something that's more fair, something tied to your lifespan, tied to your time on Earth, versus tied to how lucky you were to buy something at the beginning of a trend. So I'm going to skip the UBI one, but Europe is actually a place where UBI is accepted. US, where I'm from, it is seen as a bad thing. It is seen as welfare. The reality is when UBI is implemented properly, it actually brings more goodness to the world than people understand. And we need to move that to a global basis. So I'm almost done. Yeah, population. We have increased our population, essentially a millionfold over the last, few thousands of years. But if you look at where we came from, for the 200,000 years of our history of our species, we've had an average of about 100,000 people on this earth. We now have 8 billion. Okay, so the line of the growth you can't even see on this chart. And there was a point in the world where there was only less than 10,000 people that actually was here after the Tobo volcano eruptions. So we are very lucky that we even exist today. We need to make sure that we leverage our luck of being here and do good things with the world. We need to educate ourselves using the technology that we have so that we can create a better society. We need to create a place for when all of these people are displaced from their jobs, we need to create virtual worlds where they can go in and educate themselves, entertain themselves, create commerce, and be able to connect with people around the world. We need to move away from an occupation-based society to a vocation-based society. Occupation is about, the word comes from the Latin word occupatio, which is all about trading your time for money, because it's occupying something, occupying your time, trading your time for money. We need to move back to a vocational idea of doing what your calling is. Vocation is vocatio, to be called, right? Something that you love to do, that brings you happiness and joy. And Picasso says something that I think is quite meaningful and very relevant to all of you, is what is the meaning of life? The meaning of life, he says, is to find your gift. And the purpose of life is to give it away, right? He didn't say the purpose of life is to go and sell it for as much money as you can. It is to give it away and let as many people enjoy what your gift is. We should think about that, and you guys have an opportunity to do these things. So I'm going to skip some of these slides because I'm being called off. And there is a couple of slides at the end I do want to, that are specifically made for you that I want you to understand. So Technology has been a tool. AI has been a tool, but it will move beyond that. It will start to become our patron. It will start to become the resource that we leverage so that we don't have to work. We can focus on doing what we enjoy. And longer term, AI will become our progeny. It will take all of our history, our culture, our memes, and take it to the next level, right? I hope what I'm telling you is actually creating an overview effect, kind of what Jan is saying, versus the 300 people that got to go to space. You get to hear some of these ideas and maybe changes your perspective on the world. And I want you to start thinking about what you need to do. Take action, because you have an opportunity to actually change the path of where we head with this. I want you to go and find your calling, find your purpose, something that you will devote your time to. I want you to ask deeper questions. Don't just accept whatever is being fed to you on media or people on stage. Think critically. Learn more soft skills, the philosophy, psychology, communication, history. And go and read books, read deep books, not short podcasts or TikToks. The things that you will learn from reading a 200-300-page book is something that you cannot comprehend. And start to get proficiency in AI, start to use all these new devices and technology, become avid users, because you will need to know these things when the world changes. And reduce your time on TV, social networks, and games. And make time for fitness, because if your body is not healthy, none of this stuff matters. And travel so that you can see other cultures beyond your neighborhood. Spend time with your family, because you will miss them when they are gone. And find mentors that will guide you when you go along the way. And lastly, I want to remind you, dedicate your time to help build something that unites the world, creates that abundant society. You have this superpower because you now have these technologies at your fingertips. That superpower is a responsibility. Take that responsibility and do something with it. And back to the beginning. We are now at the dawn of a new reality. And I made a little song for you guys. All right, so last thing, make a difference. You can do it.